Now, the move to impeach Ondo State Deputy Governor Agbola Ajayi has continued to divide the legislature. The House has now suspended the Deputy Speaker Iroju Ogundeji and another lawmaker Adewale Williams for unruly behavior. Meanwhile, the Majority Leader Jamiu Maito, APC's member representing Akoko Northwest, resigned his position. The two suspended lawmakers, as well as the Majority Leader, are among the 9 lawmakers that dissociated themselves from the impeachment of the Deputy Governor, Agbola Ajayi, who has since defected to the opposition PDP.
Joining us now to discuss more on the matters arising in Ondo State, southwest Nigeria, is the Commissioner for Information for the state, Donald Ojogo. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsday. Some of the lawmakers on video yesterday alleged that monies exchanged hands up to the tune of 10 million naira each for some lawmakers to influence the impeachment proceedings against the deputy governor. And I was asking you if Governor Akeredolu wants his deputy out of office at all costs.
Yes, there are 2 legs to that question. One, if 10 million naira per legislator was actually deployed or disbursed to induce each of the legislators, each of the 14 legislators who served the deputy governor without impeachment notice. Well, the answer to that question is simple. It is unnecessary. It is a needless story, and it's an insinuation that is expectedly coming from the quarters of those who have decided to run away from their shadow. It is not true. Secondly, you alluded to the fact whether or not the governor, Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, will want his deputy out of office at all costs. The answer to that is also no. A capital no, N-O. The governor is not desirous of using his deputy out of office at all costs. At all costs means by every means necessary. It is not. Having said that, it could not perhaps be ruled out too that the leadership of the party in the states, as well as those of us who are adherents and followers of the party and real members of the party in the states, we want the deputy governor out of office honorably, legitimately, and constitutionally. And that is what the House of Assembly has commented. So whether the governor is personally involved or not, the party wants the deputy governor to vacate office constitutionally by giving support and backing to what the House of Assembly has commenced. So let's leave Mr. Governor out of it.
All right, Mr. Ojogo, unfortunately, we might not be able to leave your principal out of this because a lot of people, especially those in Ondo State, have accused both parties of power mongering at the expense of development, real development in Ondo State, that the governor and the deputy are more concerned about holding on to power as against alleviating the poverty in Ondo State.
Well, first and foremost, let me start from your last leg. It is preposterous for you to allude to poverty in Ondo State. It depends on what you mean by poverty. What is your definition of poverty in Ondo State? Yes, of course, anybody who intends to leave any system, whether government or party, must have stories to tell, must have stories to advance, must have reasons to canvass, to take whatever decision he or she wants to take. So when you talk about poverty, it is not true. What we have seen in Ondo State is developmental efforts on the part of the government. Nobody in Ondo State can allude to any fact that the governor of the state and the government in the last 3.5+ years has not performed. Even those who are leaving government, who are even leaving the party, have affirmed the fact that Mr. Governor has performed. We know, of course, there are bound to be crimes, there are bound to be complaints, because when a governor refuses to release the common patrimony of the people, when a chief executive in any state refuses to surrender the commonwealth of the people for the state to plunder, definitely complaints like this will come. It would have been a different ball game if at this point in time, Mr. Governor did not perform. So at this point in time, roads are not being constructed. If at this point in time, the primary schools are still the way they were before we came in. If at this point in time, the roads, the commonly used analogy is the Okeala Bojuto in Ikare, that used to be a hill that has been molded down to a dual carriageway. Today we have the Ore Bridge, the first of its kind in Ondo State, that was completed and commissioned by Mr. President. We have the bypass going on. We also have the Lagos, the Araromi in Ilaje to Lekki Road that is ongoing. So with all these things, and look at the state capital that has won a new look entirely. So when all these things take place at the expense of the personal greed and personal selfishness of some individuals, you are bound to hear this complaint. It would have been a different ball game if the story was that Mr. Governor has not performed, he has not done anything. But in this case, he has performed, he has worked. Developmental efforts are also traceable to him, but our pockets are lean. Is that a complaint? Is it, my brother? Leadership has responsibilities. It is either you take up positions of leadership with the desire to bring on board or to bring to bear the needed and desirable development to the people, or you decided to stay off. You have two names, and the choice of making either of those two names belong to the individual that is involved. You see, it's either you are part of any system that wrought development on the people, or on a system that decided to play politics with the welfare of the people, but lined their pockets with the common patrimony that belongs to them. So the issue of poverty is not there. It's not there. It's analysis.
Mr. Donald, it's intriguing that you said we should leave the governor out of the travails of his deputy, because last I recall, they came into office on a joint ticket. They cannot be Mr. Governor without Mr. Deputy on that ticket. And if he has said nothing, perhaps my question was far-reaching when I said, did he want him out of office? Maybe I should have left out at all costs. But it's also interesting you've mentioned leadership and responsibilities, and that brings me to the latest criticisms, especially in a time of COVID-19 that we are all witnessing. There are those who say that Governor Akeredolu hasn't shown so much of that leadership and responsibility, especially when he got infected with COVID-19. He didn't self-isolate, he was receiving guests, and 6 days after, he has declared himself COVID negative. What does the governor have to say about this? Is he worried about the signal and the messages he's sending out to the people of Ondo State?
Well, again, that is also pretentiously illogical, highly illogical to the extent that Mr. Governor is been highly transparent in the management of the COVID-19, the issues arising from the COVID-19. I recall that when Mr. Governor first tested positive, he wanted to ensure that the thing was confirmed, and he did a second test, which also turned out to be positive. And almost immediately, he went into self-isolation and underwent serious home management, medical-wise. And throughout all those days, he was under observation. He observed himself. Although he's asymptomatic, but he decided that activities surrounding him must be limited, must be restricted. And he never for once received any visitor. He has never played politics with it. All the stories that are coming were not unexpected, they were likely to come. But I want to also assure you, and to also put it on record, that aside Lagos State and Abuja, Ondo State is the only state in the entire federation amongst the remaining 35 states outside Lagos that has done very aggressive and unhindered test drive. You recall that where there is an aggressive test drive, as far as this COVID-19 is concerned, you are most likely rather, to get more results. Whether the results are positive, whether the results are likely to be negative, it is not the duty of those who are carrying out the test. But as long as you are doing minimum of 200 and 300 tests on a daily basis, you are likely, most likely, to have at least a quarter of that number that will come. So
all
any
right,
state
thanks
that
to you,
does not...
Mr. Donald Ojogo, for your time today.
So,